Let's go ahead and go back to the script for our hero, and we'll get things ready to set up so we can place our magic orb from the hero and have it shooting out into the scene. So you can either double click on your hero script, or if you already still have it open, just go back to the mono develop. So what we need is actually a couple of more variables. One of them is going to be the a public variable game object, and we're going to be using our magic orb here, so let's go ahead and just call it magic orb. And then we're going to use one other. We have that position where we're going to shoot it from, so we're going to take just the transform, and we'll call this one, we'll actually call it socket. Alright, so those two, let's see, those, and then let's go ahead and set, we'll wait on that one, we'll go ahead and wait on health. Let's see, we have our two right here. Let's go ahead and go ahead and save, go back into Unity, click on your hero, and then be sure you see your magic orb and your socket. So the socket is right here. I'm just going to left click and drag it onto the socket. The magic orb, if you notice in your prefabs, you have that magic orb. Drag that one and drop it onto there. So we have our magic orb, our socket. Now at the moment, nothing's going to happen, so let's go ahead and go back to our script. And inside the script, now we've got our update, we have our move, so let's do a shoot. So we're going to say a new method called shoot. And this one, we want to be constantly checking for it, so let's go ahead and go to our update, and let's place in shoot right below the move. And for shoot, let's go ahead and say that we want to make this one, we're going to do it the same like we did the other, where we're going to look for an input from a button or an axis, which allows us to use the joystick or the keyboard or the mouse, any or all of them. So we'll say get button down. That means when we click a button for firing, for shooting, it's going to check it only one time, and it's going to be on the down state. And the option for it is going to be fire 1. Now fire 1, this one is actually another name just like the other one. If we go back into our input, we'll go in here real quick so you can see it. The input has fire 1, 2, 3, and it's going to be 1 for the keyboard, so left control. And then if we go down to fire 1, we'll see it's joystick button 0, and also mouse 0. So with those, I'm going to call fire 1. And what do we want to do when we actually push the button down? So this is going to be the part where we try to figure out what's the bullet going to do, how is it going to come out. For this, let's go ahead and just say that, let's start off by saying we want to just simply instantiate an object, but also we want to change the change the copy object's properties. So we're going to say game object. We're going to go ahead and store it inside of an object once we create it. So we're going to say instantiate, which is, think of it just as creating a copy of. And the object we want is that magic orb, which is the game object. The position we want to shoot it out from, remember this is going to be the socket. So the socket, this is going to be, let's see, position and socket rotation. Alright, and if we do this, we're going to need to make sure we declare it as a game object. Alright, so we have a game object. We're going to create one. We're going to create a copy of the magic orb, set it at the socket position and rotation angle, and then we're going to assign it to this object. And the reason for it is so that we can just change the name. That way we can look for the specific name, which is going to be magic orb. When you create an instantiated object, by default it will include a clone next to the name, so we're just going to go ahead and rename it once we create it. Alright, so if we have this set up, if we have shoot, we have it set inside of our update, we're looking for a single button pushed down with fire. which is left control or the mouse button 0, or the I think it's going to be like standard Logitech control would be the green button. So if we go back into Unity, alright, so once it gets done compiling, then we can go and push play. And what should happen is when we shoot, we get our weapon shooting out. And you should be hearing the sound as well. If it hits the object, it disappears. Otherwise, it keeps on going. Alright, so now we have our basic system set up. We can shoot. The next thing that we want to do is actually check for seeing whether or not the shooting can do anything else. So for instance, we can limit how many bullets we actually shoot. So if we wanted to actually limit the bullet amount, say for instance we wanted to we want to say that there's only a certain amount of magic orbs, then let's just make a public integer and we'll say magic orb amount, and we'll give our player 20 magic orbs to start with. Alright. Now, using the magic orb amount, what we want to do is subtract it every time we shoot. So if we're actually pushing the button down, and before we create, let's go ahead and do a check. We're going to do a conditional. We're going to say if the magic orb amount is greater than 0, then as long as it's greater than 0, then we'll let the player actually continue shooting these out. Alright, but if magic orb subtracting each time, so every time we shoot, we're going to subtract 1 from it. So if it eventually gets down to 0, then you won't be able to actually shoot anymore. And then you'll have to actually find some ammo pickups and continue looking for things, which will give you some good gameplay elements. Alright, so just to test to make sure that that works, you can go ahead and go back into Unity, let it compile. Once it compiles, go ahead and press play. With the hero selected in the hierarchy over here, when you click to shoot, what you should notice is now magic orbs at 19. If I keep shooting, I can go all the way down, and I'm down to 2, down to 0, and now if I click, I can no longer shoot. So it allows me to set a nice little parameter for the player, make them a little bit more selective on when and how they shoot. Alright, so that's going to finish off the basic setup for the weapon. We're going to continue working over more elements of the hero, but let's go ahead and take a look at the turret and start working through it.